We're back. This is Renovate and Build with Jim and Sandra, powered by Fair Trade Works.
Hot town, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. Bend down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city. All around.
Okay, so summer's over, but we do have some ideas to keep you hot this winter. That's on Product Face Off, coming up here on Renovate and Build. Thanks for joining us this morning. Hope you're enjoying your weekend.
Good morning, everybody. Sandra, as I mentioned off the top of the show about how the trust has been lost in the construction industry, I just wanted to back that up with some facts. For those of you just tuning in, I was talking about how the construction industry has lost its trust with consumers, and you know, in the old days, how we used to know our builders. There was pride in every home built, and even with a plaque. And now, due to increased competition, lack of legislation, bad trades masking their bad work under changing company names and internet marketing, we're all suffering, and that's why I started Fair Trade Works. Our company doesn't do the actual building. We represent the clients by taking what they want to get done, putting the job into a construction scope of work, and then submitting it out to tendering or best pricing to our qualified and vetted tradespool. Once we have a winner, we sign contracts which list our completion dates, guarantee our pricing, and then on top of that we monitor the entire project from start to finish and are one point of contact for all your questions and concerns along the way. Basically, we are advocate through the construction process. But why I started the company, as mentioned earlier, was because houses just simply aren't being built like they used to. As we all know, construction defect lawsuits have been on the rise for several years now. According to a recent survey conducted by Criterion Engineers, approximately 15% of all new homes have 2 significant defects. These include the following figures for new homes. 23% have deficient or defective windows and doors, 21% have defective or deficient roofs, and 19% have soil deficiencies, for example, pooling water, foundation cracks, which are inevitably roll on to structural issues, and 18% have framing defects or deficiencies, for example, leaning walls, floors creaking, and the roof sags. And the list goes on and on. So it's not just my word, these are actual facts.
Very interesting. So much to learn, especially when it comes to, as you said, learning about deficiency and defects. When you get a new home built, Jim, you always think that it's going to work out well, and that everything's going to be perfect, but that's obviously not the case. Yeah,
it all looks good on the walkthrough, but you know, things start to happen once you moved in.
Well, as I said, so much to learn. In fact, Nicola Campbell from Walter Homes, our real estate expert, is in the studio right now, and we have a lot to learn from her in her 10 years in the industry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Thanks
Nicola.
for having me back.
No problem. Thanks so much for joining us here on this Saturday morning. And we were just chatting before you show, and you said you're extremely busy right now, even on the weekend.
Oh, yes. Weekends are definitely the busy time for us. We tend to work closer to 7 days a week instead of the typical 5. But when the fall market is as active as it is already, you just have to go with it. So
yeah, not enough hours in the day for you.
Exactly.
And you were mentioning you've had one of your busiest years ever, is that right?
The summer has been incredibly active, which was a bit of a surprise. Typically July, August will fall off a little bit, but this summer was on fire, and I think it's going to spill over into the fall market. Last fall, probably one of the busiest fall markets that I've seen since 2005, 2006. And I really think that this year is on par to follow that same pace.
Just keeps on going.
Yeah.
We noticed the same thing in construction. There was no summer for us. The phones continue to ring.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of scary for fall, isn't it? Because some people were away, obviously. So we've got something. I shouldn't say scary. That's good news.
It's good news.
Yeah,
it's good news.
We want a busy market.
Nicola, we've got some questions here. So you ready?
Absolutely. Fire away.
Okay. With home prices in Vancouver being so high compared to the rest of the country, what are you finding is the most difficult part of matching homes with clients wanting to get into the market?
Well, of course, we'll do our best to meet all of the wants of our clients, but ultimately there ends up being some sort of compromise. So we'll see that compromise happening perhaps in a price point where we up the price to really get what they want, change areas in order to move into a different area where the space is bigger, for example. Perhaps for their price to be in the area they want, they compromise on size. And the last thing that we'll see is they'll maybe consider looking at a place that hasn't been finished or is not as new as the other product on the market. So with the renos, those are very much in the buyer's control. But we're finding that the main struggle for the buyers are that they don't necessarily have the cash to save up for the down payment, do all their closing costs, and then move into the property with another, call it what, $10,000 to $20,000 in their pocket, depending on the property. So that can fall by the wayside if they don't have the funds available.
Yeah, we see that a lot. Just people max themselves out just to go into a certain location of town, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all location based, and from there they're just absolutely maxed out. So.
Well, because it just takes so much to get into the market, and you know, we have this lovely transfer tax, and there's the costs of selling are so high that, you know, we always encourage our clients to just get the best that you can afford, and then work from there. So if it's something that you can live with, you know, maybe you're doing the renos later, you're saving up to do those later, for example, great. But to be in something that's only going to suit you for a year or two, and then to have the idea to move up, isn't really economically feasible for most.
It's not the same as it used to be.
No, definitely.
You know, I know growing up, that's what your parents told you to do, was buy a house, flip it quickly once you got some equity into it, and you were able to move up. But it's not the same in the Vancouver market, obviously, right now.
Yeah, unless you're going into something, which I hope we get to talk about. It has to be a bit of a perfect scenario and take in lots of different considerations. But just to like move from one place to a new one in 2 years, you know, even on a $400,000, $500,000 place, and say you want to move up a $100,000 bracket, between transfer tax, closing costs that you're going to be paying twice, you know, fees to sell and all of that, you're probably looking at $20,000, $30,000. So if you're getting a place where you have the extra space and you've gone that route and maybe not the best finishes, and you just save that money to reno, that can be a really great plan.
It's tough to maneuver the marketplace too. Like you said, it's okay to say, you know, moving up, but with a lack of inventory and so much competition, to actually be able to strategically move through this marketplace from residence to residence is, as you know, it's
a challenge.
It's extremely challenging.
But I think that's why your realtor is more important than ever, and why I love having you here, is to be able to prepare and to realize, folks, there's changes now. We can't do it the same way we used to. We have to be prepared for a new market.
Absolutely. And just I think that education is a buyer's best friend. When they know what they're getting into, they know what to expect. We really review that a long-term plan, and then it doesn't come as a surprise if, you know, they happen to have a growing family all of a sudden, or meet somebody, or, you know, life will change. But yeah, it's certainly something that gets reviewed, and you can prepare for.
Okay, we know that kitchens and bathrooms, especially kitchens, are one of the most popular renovations, and people have a lot of high expectations of kitchens as well as their master bath right now. What do you feel the majority, let's just start with the bath, or the kitchen rather, what do you feel the majority of the homeowners you're taking around looking for new homes say are must-haves now?
Okay, well, first of all, I think that the kitchen just has to have a little bit of feeling of space. If it's really narrow, if it's closed in, that tends to be instant turn off. Okay. Secondly, will be having a new finish. So if it's, you know, linoleum countertops and they're quite worn, or, you know, those lovely 90s white cabinetry with, like, you know, where the white ends up staining. I'm sorry, you'll have to educate me, Jim, on like the terms. So to have something new and modern, and even though the building might not be new, but the unit feels new to them, that's pretty key. So cabinets being done, newer appliances, they don't have to be brand new. Yeah. Countertops.
You mean the avocado?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Or just, you know, the stark white appliances with the dark countertops, for example. So backsplash, and then some sort of like a bar, because especially for condos, there tends to be less and less space. So people are just trying to really maximize every square foot in their property. So a little overhang for a kitchen island, and then storage options. Smart storage options in the kitchen. So maybe deep drawers for pots and pans, that kind of thing, or Lazy Susan in the corner, just trying to maximize every nook and cranny.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love those old homes. You know, people are always driving for new construction, this polished feel, but I just believe there's so much potential in those large, old Vancouver homes, you know, for renovations. They're great. They're great space, tons of room, a little bit of character. There's a squeak in the floor. Who cares, right? They're homes, right? Like, and there's just something that I've been into many homes, but just some of those old big homes, they got some
personality.
Yeah, they got some personality, they got some soul,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
we really enjoy kind of
And
renovating
it
those.
definitely depends on the buyer. I mean, certainly a number of buyers are looking for exactly what you're describing, and then you have the people on the other side of the fence, and there's probably an equal, if not greater number that just want new. They want new everything, and arguably the quality of the older homes, like you were describing, is better than a lot of the new construction.
Yeah, but how about the quality of the new construction? That's I think that's a huge problem. Like people are buying huge price tags,
Agree.
and they're buying these new product that wow, it looks decent, and then 6 months down the road, they're literally having more problems than they would have an old structure that's been working functionally for 20 years and is in great shape.
Totally, and it's one thing that we see time after time on inspection, and we encourage our clients, even new construction, to have it inspected, because a home inspector, and the ones that we use, most of them are ex-builders, ex-contractors, journeyman carpenters, and so forth, so they really understand what they're looking for. For a new construction place, though, you don't have the telltale signs because it is so new, so it hasn't settled and it hasn't done a number of those things that an older home, you get a better picture of what's been going on there.
Yeah.
What's really behind the walls.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
It's true.
Yeah,
Yes.
And maybe even a little bit more confidence at the end of the day.
Absolutely. It's still standing, right?
Yeah.
So another question, do you feel your clients are questioning quality renovations more than ever when they are paying such large price tags for real estate?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if it's not to their taste, which may or may not have anything to do with quality, but if it's not to their taste, they're out the door. So for somebody that's considering renovating in order to sell, then I would recommend certainly going with something that's a more neutral palette. The really strong colors or strong presence, like for example, like a French country kitchen, isn't going to do it for everybody. So it's better to consult with an interior designer and so forth to get a sense of what people are actually looking for. But from a quality perspective, if the quality is not there and you go in, I was in a condo earlier this week, and the floors were pretty much just a rollout laminate. It seemed maybe one step up from a linoleum. Kitchen was thrown together. The doors on the cabinets had just basically been taken off and like slapped back on. They didn't quite fit the boxes. There's just a number of things that you could tell were done
haphazardly,
inexpensively, and thrown together. And when somebody does it like that, you definitely question, who is this done by? Because they obviously didn't care enough to put the time and effort into making it look nice. And then the buyers ultimately look at it as a negative. They just look at it and say, well, I have to go in now and redo that. So the seller's thinking that they're going to see a big turnaround on this, as you put it, haphazard reno, and the buyer's not going to pay a premium for that at all.
Yeah. In your opinion, do you think it's worth investing? do you recommend to your sellers that they spend some money in upgrading their homes before they go on the market? Do you see value in that, or do you think that it's best to sell homes as is and let the buyer unlock the potential?
I think it definitely depends on where the home is located and also price point. There are certain price points, for example, more entry-level price points, 500, 400, 600, where a buyer is likely this is going to be their first purchase. They are going to be completely intimidated by doing a renovation. And so doing something to up it for the buyer would be a great thing. And then you flip over into houses or bigger properties like penthouses and that kind of thing, where no matter who goes through, they tend to want to have it their own way.
Customized.
Yeah. So unless the property is on that end just completely gross, like the carpets are dingy and dirty and need to be updated, you may want just to put a fresh coat of paint on and just make it look clean. There's that level, and then but doing it up to a level where somebody's going to move in and just be like, oh, I love everything you do. I would certainly do that for entry-level condos. I would definitely do that for a number of different homes, depending on area. But generally speaking, people want to buy something that is move-in ready.
Yeah.
So if you are going to take the time to do something quality, power to you. Absolutely.
It's funny because it makes complete sense to me, my way of thinking, that when you sell a home, like your heart's out of that, right? You're just trying to sell a home, collect the money, move on, and restart, you know. But I think it reflects the market right now when it would make complete sense when a buyer buys the home, and if there was a construction system where they had confidence in the construction industry that they would buy it, and they would invest the money to say, let's make this our own, right? But I honestly think the construction industry is to blame for a lot of that, because homeowners that are purchasing a house, they want to move in, make it their own, and they've gone through this, they've got lives and kids and relationships, and the transition of moving home is busy enough for them as well, but then to undertake the construction process, I think it's just too overwhelming for them.
And there's a lot of fear there too.
Absolutely.
There's a lack of trust, and
yeah, but that's my point. Like, it's if they could say, I can hire this person, I know they're going to do quality, they're going to do a great job, they're going to give me great advice, I think the whole market would say would shift. But it's the construction industry that just stops people from basically doing it the right way, right? It's all ass backwards because the construction industry is in such trouble, right? So
yeah, I think you were speaking to the almost a deregulation of standards, and we definitely see that. And you don't, you know, as a buyer that's going into a new place and wanting to do a reno, do the risk of possibly working with somebody that's not on the up and up, that maybe they don't understand the deposit structure, maybe they give them all their money up front, for example.
Because at that time they're tight for money too, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They're really watching what they're spending, right?
So things like that, you know, that's where your company is so great, because you do educate the buyers and the seller, or just homeowners, about what things need to be looking like and provide that level of security.
Yeah.
And structure. Okay, so let's just backtrack just one moment. I know at the beginning we were talking about young couples and moving up. Let's walk through the recommendations, especially for somebody listening at home that might have kids that are in this position. Young clients entering the market for the first time, they have a limited budget, but they want to resell eventually and move up. What's your recommendation for them for that first home that they're getting ready to sell? They don't want to pour a lot of money into it, because remember, they're trying to go up a bit.
Yep.
What do you say, here's how we should walk through this sale?
In terms of what kind of quality renos, like where they should be spending their money, I would say I would be putting it in, assuming that the flooring is destroyed, which it tends to happen with family. I would say updating floors is a big one. People will notice that first. It's the first thing they take off their shoes or staring at the floor. So floors is really important. Paint goes an incredibly long way. Just painting the baseboards, getting all the walls like a nice color that's not too
offensive.
Thank you. I was trying to pick my words.
I was thinking of a black bathroom or bedroom I saw once.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, black bedroom. No, I'm offended.
No black bedroom. But yeah, paint on the walls. Putting together for kitchen, anything you can do in the kitchen to make it, spruce it up, make it feel new and clean and vibrant is huge. I would be spending my money there. Bathroom, same thing. If there's retiling, tub surround, maybe a new countertop for the vanity, that kind of thing. That's where money is definitely well spent.
And they're not expensive. What you've said is not really expensive. It's just, like you said, freshening things up.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have to pick the craziest, highest end finishes out there. Certainly you can get a lot of bang for your buck if you're being smart. So
you really can more than ever, right? Even, gosh, don't even want to say this, but I was in IKEA last weekend getting something with my daughter. But even there, like their new cabinet line is awesome. Like, you know, there's so much on the market. It's just, if you're a consumer, there's nowhere to start. So, you know, you need to talk to the right people, get good advice, and you're right, for the bang for your buck, you can just transform these homes. Painting is the most important finishing aspect of any construction, right? People just don't think that, paint to get the cheapest price, slap it on the walls, and it's a disaster. I've seen $20 million homes where they're just the worst paint job, right? So it's just about getting right advice, and there's just so much product out there. There's overseas product that where you don't have to put a lot of money in, but you can just make these homes just awesome spaces.
Pop,
make them pop,
Absolutely.
and just be individual. Again, in Vancouver, it's the same paint colors every time. It's the same this, you know. Nobody seems to kind of, you know, make it their own or be individual or go a little bolder or all these things, right? I view so many homes, and I just seem like I'm just seeing the same thing
Well, what Sandra was saying, you know, what you would do if you do add these kinds of tweaks to the kitchen and make it like neutral. Somebody can certainly come in and then spruce it up and add their own little flair, and maybe they want to do an accent wall, or maybe they want to, you know, change the backsplash, and really there's some little things that you can do to really personalize your space.
I said, because I don't want it to feel like it's been lived in by someone else. It's nice if it's just a fresh coat of paint, like you said, I can deal with that later, but I don't want to have to kind of deal with your old world. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And that's really important to helping buyers be able to picture themselves in that next space and try and make it feel like their own.
So true. We just want to talk one last question here, Nicola, very quickly, about affordability. There's obviously still some deals out there, as we discussed. I don't want to let you go until we talk about this, but what can homeowners do and still be able to make some money on their homes?
From a renovation perspective, I really think they need to be looking at the condition. I would say if you can get somebody to come in, we usually bring in stagers, for example, or get some sort of like third-party perspective that is just going to really be blunt with you.
Yes.
And I think that we all, because we live in our own spaces and we're like, oh, I'll get to that next time, or I'll get to that later, but a buyer is really going to notice all of those little details. So spend the time on the details. Spend the time, spend a little bit of money, and you'll definitely see it back. But certainly, I wouldn't cut corners with the quality of the products, with the quality of the tradespeople. You know, getting your strata permission before you do anything major.
Key point.
All those key things, because they will come back on you when you do have a deal on the table. So just make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's, and make it a nice, clean space for somebody.
Yeah, just do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know that people at home that are thinking of getting into the market right now are really going to appreciate your information, and I hope you'll come back soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
We've been speaking with Realtor Nicola Campbell of Walter Homes. If you'd like to reach Nicola, you can visit her website at walterhomes.ca, or you can also call her. It's 604-767-4600. That's 604-767-4600.
And the learning continues with our next guest, Peter Hildebrand of Iredale Group, to talk about the incredible exchange office located in downtown Vancouver. The skyscraper is a forerunner in green design. That's still ahead on Renovate and Build.
There's still lots more ahead. This is Renovate and Build, powered by Fair Trade Works with Jim and Sandra.